Okay, hello everyone. Welcome again to this tutorial. Hi, I hope you're all fine. So just saying hello here. Thank you for coming to the tutorial. And today the tutorial should be basically a bit of an indication about what I expect from you for this assignment, which is a seminar paper. Why it was decided that we would give everybody the opportunity to write a seminar paper and what it is all about, and what sort of output would be expected from you. Now, if you have your Moodle site, in the first topic, there is posted something about the course assessment. But basically today what I would like to do is not go over the course assessment, but more about what this seminar paper should be about: how to start, where to start from, and how to get your ideas in order. So basically, what I would like to point out is that for this seminar paper, I have chosen 5 broad themes. Wait a second. Rose says I can't hear anything. Is there anybody else who is not hearing? Or better still, if any of you are hearing, can you please wave your hands? Yes, you're all hearing. Okay. Okay, so Rose, can you please check your audio? You should be able to hear. Okay, so basically what we are talking about are these 5 broad themes. I have chosen 5. However, I am a very flexible person, and if there is somebody who thinks that they would like it better, would somehow get more benefit if they write about something different, if they decide to write their seminar paper about something different, you can feel free to send me an email to describe what sort of theme you would like to take into consideration. The 5 broad themes are digital literacies projects, open educational resources, open courses, social networking in education projects, and game-based learning. Once again, I urge you that you can also choose your own theme, but these are meant to be as guidelines. But what exactly is a seminar paper, and what do I expect from you in terms of this seminar paper? So, okay, the outline of today's tutorial is to describe a little bit of our aim of why write a seminar paper. So what is the seminar paper and why would we choose to write it? Choosing a topic, so how would you choose a good topic for you from those 5 that are listed, or anything else that you might think might be more of benefit to yourselves and also to us. Research how and where to start from. I mean, you have done a previous degree course, but some people still find some difficulties when saying, okay, where do I start from? How do I do this? Then something about the statement, that is, every research has a statement. That is, you have a researcher's voice, and that is your claim as a researcher. And then the further steps, how to relate what you claim to the future research work. Okay, so why would we write a seminar paper here? Well, first of all, we decided, when I said we, because it was a team effort that decided the structure of the ILT assessment, that is having an online component and also a seminar paper. And when we thought about a seminar paper, we said this. We said we need people who actually have hands-on experience in the classroom. Stefan, I think your microphone is switched on. Can you please turn off the mic? Stefan Bezzina, can you please turn off the mic? Thank you. So basically, when we said that, we said, okay, we need people who are out there in the classrooms who may propose ideas for research. At this point in time, because this is a simple assignment, we do not want you, and I do not expect that you carry out the research that you propose. But I would like you to come up with ideas to propose research studies that we might carry out and that students in Malta at higher level, and not just at higher level, but also in the classroom, may benefit from. So the idea of writing a seminar paper is that of being able to present your ideas to your peers and interested audience. In fact, we shall have another tutorial, and I shall also put up little posters here and there in the fourth world with some of your ideas as I discuss with you about what you would like to do. So I shall also be approaching some of you individually to ask them what you're doing and whether you would like to share your ideas in a poster session in world number 4. To demonstrate your depth of knowledge in one specific area. That is, sometimes we just scratch the surface, and in this specific context in ILT there are so many topics to discuss that sometimes we just scratch the surface, and it is worth the while for people like you, for students, for teachers, to be able to do your own digging, do your own research, to go in more in depth in one specific area, and then to be able to analyze different sources of research and then formulate your own ideas about how such research should be conducted. And I repeat, we are not expecting you to do research, but to propose research and to propose ways in which this research is conducted. Finally, you know what I would like, that should such projects be valid, I would like other students to take up on them and carry out the research that you propose. And I think this would be an interesting way of carrying forward your work, beyond this virtual world, beyond the year that you spent with us as PGCE students, sort of like leaving a little bit of a legacy for the others who might wish to choose your own area of research. So as I said, the thematic areas chosen for this year are 5. And they include, as I said, digital literacies projects, open educational resources. There are open courses like MOOCs, we call them MOOCs, massively open online courses, social networking in education projects, and game-based learning. As I mentioned as well, you are also free to decide upon your own. So how to start with the research, where to start from? I always tell my people, and my friends and also my colleagues, if you have a question, a query, your best friend at this point in time is a search engine. Your best friend at this point in time is Google. And the fact is, I'm not trying to market Google, but the reality is that all the information that we might want to find is out there on Google. And sometimes the problem is not whether there is information, but if we know how to look for it, if we know how to search for it. And that is another problem we have in schools with children, with kids, with students. The information is there. It's just that many people have difficulties in finding the right information. There is so much information. You can have a whole indigestion of information over there. There is so much to know. The problem is how to look for it, how to search for it. And although there are many, and even to these questions, there are tutorials online. There are if you look at my Diigo, at my social bookmarks, I have bookmarked over there a whole tutorial on how to do Google searches, especially in academia. So when I normally have this kind of research, I start, it's a bit like archaeology. You dig everywhere at the surface at first. You just scratch the surface until you start revealing something. And then when you reveal the tip of something, then you start digging around it to reveal the whole object. And this is the way research is carried out. You start at first, inputting keywords here and there to see what comes up that might be interesting, that might interest you. And once you find the keyword that displays information that is of interest, then you start digging in deeper. You elaborate on the keywords. You make them more detailed. You start filtering through them and filtering through the information. So first start with Google, and then you start looking for valid and reliable sources. What are valid and reliable sources? In academia, such valid and reliable sources are in fact what we call as peer-reviewed journals. At this point in time, you have seen a number of blogs as well. And some of the blogs that I link you with are blogs from distinguished professors, and therefore are quoted as reliable sources. However, if you don't have a history, a record of the person who is blogging, who is actually putting forward his thoughts, then one has to be a little bit careful. So one approaches blogs with caution. When you have peer-reviewed journals, meaning when you have journals that have been reviewed by other experts. Charmaine has her mic switched on. Can you please turn it off? Thank you.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So when you have these journal articles that have been reviewed by other experts, that is when you start having more valid references in your work. I use very much Google Scholar. Google Scholar is a great academic tool. You type scholar.google.com. You can also filter your results. You type the keywords inside the search bar, and then you start getting results in terms of PDFs, papers, journal articles. So I find Google Scholar extremely useful. Whilst you are on campus and on the campus network, you also have access to the University of Malta's library website. If you are on the campus network, even with Wi-Fi, if you use, for example, SpringerLink, if you go to the site of SpringerLink, okay, so www.springerlink.com, and you are on the campus network, it recognizes you automatically as University of Malta. And as such, because University of Malta Library have purchased some licenses from SpringerLink, you will have access to a number of journal articles. Science Direct is another excellent site where I look for journal articles. There is a huge access to articles that revolve around education, and especially technology education. So I think that's another valid site that you can use. This is what I said about SpringerLink. So SpringerLink is also very good. And for now, I would avoid Wikipedia. It is true that at times I also use Wikipedia, yes, to read a little bit of general information, but I wouldn't say and quote any Wikipedia sources. So what I am suggesting here is that you try, for this assignment at least, you try to read at least 4 such sources of literature for your seminar paper. I'm not being unkind here. A colleague of mine who has, I'm smiling, you won't see my avatar smiling, but I am smiling because a colleague of mine gave out an assignment that required students to go through 40 sources of literature, not 4. So, but I recommend quality and not quantity. So at this point in time, 4 sources of literature at minimum, at least, so that you can start getting ideas for your seminar paper. The way I work when I start researching is that I create a mind map. And this is something we have seen regularly, even in our information seminars. I find that organizing thoughts help me think. And it would be lovely if even you, during your teaching practice, you could also push forward this idea to the students, to your students, that of possibly creating a mind map where your ideas are organized in a structured manner. So what am I saying? Why should you do a mind map? So what I do when I create a mind map is that I put the topic or the title of my research work at the center, and from then onwards start building little headings in a way that after I finish my mind map, I have a skeleton. And basically what I need to do then is flesh out this skeleton. Some time ago, when I was proposing my PhD title, I spent a year working on the proposal of my PhD, just the proposal. And I was asking people here and people there, and they were telling me, you know what? I have no idea what you're trying to do. You have a lot of ideas, but they are all over the place. So that's when I said, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. So that's when I started working with this kind of framework, skeleton structure, this kind of mind map. Sometimes it even helps to scribble on paper, but the most important thing is that you put out your ideas in a way that you would do were you to write a story. I think a lot of research as a story. You are creating a story for your readers. The story has to have a good introduction. The introduction flows into the rest of the narrative, and then finally it concludes with a shall I say, with a proposition, with an ending that, in this case, as part of your seminar paper, might lead you to ask more questions. So that is about how to write it. I would also suggest that when you are reading your papers, your journal articles, if you use Microsoft Word and you go to the tab which has references in it, over there Word has got its own bibliography management tool. Basically, you click on it and you start entering your bibliography sources. Otherwise, there is, from the University of Malta Library website, you can access RefWorks. That is a good bibliographic tool to keep a database of your sources of literature. So that is for good practice. So now we come to the statement. So why? What do you need to do? The seminar paper has to have a precise stand. Let's say, for example, you are tackling social networking in education projects. As a statement, as a researcher, you can say, I think that, or my position, my bias is that social networking in education, say for example as professional development for teachers, is a very important direction that we need to take in our schools, at our local context. And that in itself is a statement. As a researcher, you are saying that you have this bias towards introducing social networking in education for teachers. So that is a stand. The rest of your argument, the rest of your seminar paper is built around this statement. Here you are sustaining, justifying your statement. In this case, you would be required to find projects that either corroborate your statement or else they sustain it. Of course, so are we supposed to start the seminar paper? I'll tackle the questions in a short while. So in this case, what you would be doing is building your arguments. Now you will also be critical in the sense that you are aware that some people may criticize that statement, and sometimes it also helps to find other research and literature that would go against your bias, your statement, to say, look, this goes against my bias, but, okay, there is something lacking in it. So this is what I propose. So then once you sustain this claim, you're presenting your arguments and what we call as a justification, okay, an academic justification. You are supporting your claim, you are supporting your statement. So once you present your research and you start building towards presenting ideas, then you can safely say that you're substantiating your claim. At the end of which, the most important thing is that, okay, this is the, so I start my seminar paper, this is the statement, okay, as part of my introduction, I usually do a general introduction, and the statement is the whole aim of my seminar paper. Once you sustain your claim, your statement with projects, with research, with what has emerged at a European level, if not at a local level, but you won't find much at the local level, and that is why your work is important. Then you continue your seminar paper by proposing your own research. So you propose possible research projects, you propose possible research tasks. Imagine you were assigning a research to another student, to a research assistant, to an academic. What would you need to find out to be able to sustain your claim? How would you be able to do it to sustain your claim? Today a student came to discuss with me because she couldn't attend this meeting. And we were discussing a project that she herself carried out during the teaching practice, and it was a fantastic project, and it used social networking in education. So I told her, think about this project that you did. How would you research its validity? Because so far you did it and it might be considered as a pilot, but if you were to really do it in valid terms, as part of a reliable, giving reliable data, okay, which will be interpreted and then translated into a research project. How would you carry out this research? How many students would need to be done? What sort of research? What sort of methodology would you choose? Would you choose, for example, a series of interviews? Would you choose, for example, maybe focus groups? Would you choose an anonymized survey amongst a representative sample of teachers, for example, of all the teachers in Malta, or maybe of all the students in Malta? Would you be taking, different social classes? Would you be considering possibly gender in this kind of project? So it's up to you to come up with creative ideas about what sort of projects or possible research ideas you might wish to see implemented, to see whether, after all, your statement, your bias, okay, can be also sustained at the local level, in the local context. Okay, that is it. That is the presentation. This presentation is upstairs in the open area. It's in the Dropbox, and you can in fact access it through the Dropbox. Now, before you start, let me see what went on in the text chat and if there are any questions. So, are we supposed to start this seminar paper with the statement? Antea, in a way, every seminar paper has to have an introduction. And I propose that within this introduction, your statement is already made clear. Your bias is already made clear. In a research project, the way we do research, we usually state the hypothesis, the aim of the research project, the objectives. In this case, within the introduction, you will certainly show your statement, your bias, what you are oriented towards. It needn't be, I'm not saying that everybody should be, for example, in favor of game-based learning. I'm not saying that, not at all. But what you sustain, your statement, has to be corroborated or sustained by research. Okay, so let me see other questions. hang on, because the text is coming up. Can we sustain this paper? Very much so, Charmaine. Charmaine asked, can we sustain this paper with practical examples? It is very important to sustain this paper with practical examples. And do not think that because of, for example, finding articles, journal articles, they won't refer to practical examples. There will be a lot of practical examples because this area, learning technologies, is built around practice. It is not theoretical. It has a foundation in educational theories. Sure, for example, when we're talking about social networking, we cannot not talk about communities of practice. Now, communities of practice has strong educational roots and foundations, but in reality, these have their relevance, find their relevance in practical examples. What format will the paper have? Abstract, introduction, body, conclusion, references? Yes, normally I didn't give you a prescribed way of how to structure your paper. However, normally we usually have a short abstract. For example, if it's a 2,000 to 3,000 word seminar paper, there would be a 50 to 100 word abstract, okay, very short abstract. Then it would have the introduction, a literature review, a proposed research, your proposed methodology, and then the conclusion and references. So normally, yes, we do have that kind of structure. Can the statement or aim be in the form of an abstract? Not really, Stefan. I wouldn't put the statement in the abstract. The abstract is a summary of what, a very general overview of what your paper is about. So the abstract usually gives a very general overview without giving too much information about what your paper will discuss or is discussing. Okay, so let me take on another question. For example, game-based learning, how you have tested quizzes, students' feedback. Charmaine said, for example, game-based learning, how you have tested quizzes, students' feedback. Yes, sure. I mean, you can take, these are very broad themes. There are different specific areas that you might wish to consider. Just a minute with the questions, please, because I would like to specify this. These are broad areas. For example, when I mentioned before the social networking in education, I even mentioned an additional possible topic, that is social networking in education for teachers. It could be for students. It could be another social networking in English, for example, or social networking in the use of language education. So these are broad themes, but then you can go into the specifics. You can choose your own title. These are not titles. These are areas, topical areas. So, for example, under the Digital Literacies project, one might choose to discuss digital literacy amongst secondary school students, for example, okay? So these are ideas. You have the freedom to be able to come up with your own titles. However, try to ensure that they fall under a broad theme. Okay, so that is what I would like to get across. So, to get back to Charmaine's questions. So, game-based learning, how you have tested quizzes, students' feedback. Sure, I mean, remember, it is very important to sustain your arguments with academic references. So, you are sustaining, for example, how you have tested quizzes or how you have or how you have obtained students' feedback, read the games they used, because, you know, for example, once I did a project with a school, with a private independent school, and I had chosen a game that was very popular a couple of years ago. It was called Quest Atlantis. It's a game for secondary school. Actually, it's a game for people aged 9 to 16. And this Quest Atlantis was then developed by the University of Indiana in the US, and it had if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not exaggerating, about 100,000 enrollments at that point in time. So there were many students playing this game. So then I took it to this private independent school. I spent some sessions with the students. During this game, the students can choose to learn something about biology, physics, creative writing as well. For example, there are some different thematic areas, and the students were playing these games, and afterwards, of course, I collected feedback. So if I were to write a research paper about this thing, first of all, I would start with a statement whether I would believe that such games would have a place in our curriculum, for example. And I state that yes, as a personal bias, I find that such games would need to be an important part of the curriculum. So that is the statement. Then I would go to the internet, okay, to find information about the game itself. There are lots of publications about this particular game, and academic publications. I probably might start off with research about game-based learning. There are many important people in the area of game-based learning, including someone, if you're interested in game-based learning, I would suggest James Paul Gee, G-E-E, it's written like that. There was I linked to his website during our first storefront. So basically, I would find some research from this person. I would add more research about this game. Within the research that I find, I would probably find ways and means in which people have assessed whether such research, whether such games are efficient, or rather than efficient, whether such games are important, they're getting results across from the students, and that is my research base. And then I propose a way in which research should be done. So, for example, in this case, it was one school, two classes, so very, and it was a private school, so very limited, and really and truly, I wouldn't say I would publish these results in an academic journal. If I were to do something, how would I design the research? What sort of framework would I need? Okay, so and then that would be my main direction, where I want to lead this research paper, where I want to lead this seminar paper. So I start with this statement, I build a case for the statement, and then I say, in view of this, I would propose that such a research is carried out. And then I describe what sort of research should be carried out. Okay, so let me see another question. I hope I have managed to answer that. So, what is the word? Can they be? Wait a second. Okay, so Charmaine said okay. Wait. Okay. Can they be the ones? Yes, you can, Charmaine. Of course, I think yes, I answered you. What is the word count? It's around 2,000 words. Okay, so it's very little. But if you do more than 2,000 words, don't worry about that, please. It's the less that worries me. But anyway, when is the deadline for this paper? The deadline is the end of January. That is when we finish when you finish your semester. Okay, your semester ends, I believe, on the 31st of January or the first week of February, and we have the deadline by the end of this semester. No, Charmaine, sorry to disturb. If you propose, no. I am not looking after the questionnaires per se. But if you propose questionnaires, I would want to know what sort of methodology you would use for distributing these questionnaires. How many questionnaires you think would be a viable research project? Would you distribute questionnaires amongst 10 people, amongst 50, amongst 100, amongst the whole population of Malta? What sort of sampling would you carry out? Those are very important plans of a research. So, okay. That's okay. I'm sorry, I'm reading. I want to manage to log in. as I was saying, okay, Claire, yes, it will be recorded. Yes, it will be recorded. Is ePortfolio a type of game-based learning? An ePortfolio that includes crosswords and other language exercises, example, fill in, multiple choice with notes associated with each game and exercise. Now, this is a bit of a tricky question, I think. Annalise, let me see how to best answer you. I would have to say that, first of all, we have to identify what we mean by game. And that's why I believe that you need to read a little bit about these matters. There are certain characteristics that make up a game. If I were to describe a game, I couldn't describe a game in a sentence, because the game is something that, first of all, a good game, an exciting game, okay? A game that keeps people returning to play it over and over again. So somebody mentioned this morning as well something about web quests, and again I would be a bit hesitant in how to use these terms. I find that sometimes we have misconceptions about these applications, these games. For example, if I have an ePortfolio and the students are building an ePortfolio, and you decide to create a kind of a competition, a competitive environment, who, I don't know, scores best at the crossword, or who uploads the greatest number of pictures or photos for a certain, so you know, if you create a competitive environment, in reality what you're doing is not really creating a game, you are gamifying the ePortfolio. We use a different term, gamification. It's a term that has been coined recently in the last 2 years, and at first there was a whole big hype about gamification. Let's gamify everything, let's gamify work. In reality, what they're meaning is, let's render work more fun. There are interesting experiments that have even been carried out in Sweden, for example, because people were not using the stairs in an underground metro. Basically, they invented a kind of a piano. The stairs were piano keys, and every time people were going up the stairs, the notes were playing. So after a while, many more people were using the stairs than before. That was a way of gamifying the object. Now, if your ePortfolio has some of these elements, then you can describe gamification, but it is not really game-based learning. So I would be careful about using that. Of course. Yes, as I said, Annalise, you can come up even with another broad theme. I mean, even when we talk about open educational resources, no, we're talking about educational resources that are found on the web. So that is a broad theme that maybe your idea of using this web-based material can fall under. Digital literacies as well. So you propose your own title. I just put in those 5 themes so that you get a little bit more of a direction. I don't tell you, okay, start from scratch, decide yourselves, you know, so as to guide you a little bit. No, Sylvian, we do not need to present the mind. That's for you. I use it as a good practice exercise. What I will be collecting at the end is your seminar paper. That's it, with the structure of the seminar paper. Okay. Of course, who said about qualitative? 1 second, please. Absolutely, Jessica, absolutely. You are the ones to propose the research method and methodology. For example, if somebody, you know, discusses the same research idea, but taken from different methodological aspects. If there are three persons, one considers a quantitative approach, one considers a qualitative approach, one considers a hybrid of both, of course they will all be different. The results might be different as well at the end of the day. So please feel free to suggest the methodology that you think would be best. Sorry, Talahar. Okay. In game-based, can we specify mainly one game or a group of educational games? Wait a second, because the text keeps popping out and I can't wait. 1 second. I'm trying to look at Charmaine's question. Sorry, Talahar. In game-based learning, can we specify mainly one game or a group of educational games we retrieve in the same time used with our students during our teaching practice? For example, that game really worked well, whereas the other game, of course, you are free to present one or as many games as you feel would be needed, as you feel are needed. So definitely you would be you are free to discuss as many examples as you think would be best. Vanessa, where can I find the 5 themes? The 5 themes, yes. They are on this presentation, which is up in the open area, and they are also on your Moodle virtual learning environment. If you go to the first topic and you scroll to the bottom, there is course assessment, and over there are the 5 broad themes and also the assessment criteria. So that is that. How shall we, Marilyn, interesting question. How shall we hand it in? Now, what I will do is this. I will open an assignment box in Moodle. And basically all you need to do is upload your assignment to the Moodle. It's very easy, really. Just upload your file from the computer and it is there, so that I retrieve it from there. So you don't need to print out assignments and get them here and get them there. We'll do everything online. Is creating online maps GIS classified as game-based learning? Again, it depends, Elaine, on the spirit that you create them in. You can try to gamify the process, but I might say that it might not be a game-based learning per se. I'll give you an example. Google Maps have released what we call as APIs, so that people can develop games using Google Maps. For example, there are specific games that I know about for mathematics, where somebody took the city of Madrid and somebody took the city of, if I'm not mistaken, Paris. And basically in Madrid, they put landmarks in specific places, and then associated different games with those landmarks. For example, if you click on the football stadium, on the Bernabeu. Sorry, I'm reading Charles's text. Yes, Charles, it will be available, this recording, and the presentation is upstairs in the open area in a Dropbox, and you can access it from there. There is an area that is dedicated to writing a seminar paper. You can see the title. So where was I? Yes. So if you click on the stadium of the Bernabeu, for example, in Madrid, okay, you get a series of quizzes and questions related to area, for example, and then you get a score, and then students can compete with each other. Again, there are elements of games over there, but remember that when I speak about game-based learning, I speak about the characteristics of game-based learning, and one of the characteristics of game-based learning is this idea of competition. Sometimes it's time-based, sometimes it's competing against one another. This idea of having immediate feedback all the time. When we're playing a game, and you get stuck in a wall, for example, you can't move across. That's feedback, okay? If you get killed, failed during the game, that's feedback, okay? You don't repeat it. Sometimes you fail. Most often during the games you fail, and sometimes they make them, that makes the game more challenging. Challenges are other game characteristics. We describe game characteristics in terms of flow. There was a person, he is of course one of the most quoted sources when talking about game-based learning and designing games. His name is very difficult to pronounce. His surname is Csikszentmihalyi. And Csikszentmihalyi, back in the 1990s, had already been experimenting with this idea of what we call flow. A flow is when a person reaches that optimal state where he or she is neither too bored. Now, if a game is too simple, that person gets too bored, or else too frustrated. Sometimes if it's too difficult for you, then you get frustrated. So when you reach that very, very thin line in the middle between being bored and frustrated, that's when you reach your optimal flow. And that's when a game is said to be designed well. And in game-based learning, that is one of our aspirations. So when we're designing games for learning, we aspire to design games that help people reach this optimal flow. Antea, sorry, I'm sorry. Because Antea, let me see. When you say propose how the research would be carried out, do you mean we should write how we would try and prove our statements and any readings on such a topic? When you say propose how the research, do you mean? No. Well, basically, you can, of course, always include references. For example, if you propose a qualitative approach, then I would say that you might include a reference on what a qualitative approach is. What sort of qualitative approach are you talking about? Are you talking about an ethnographic study? Are you talking about an observation study? Are you talking about focus groups? Are you talking about interviews? Are you talking about any other qualitative approach that you might find would work best? So in that case, yes, some kind of background into the research methodology. But I don't know if I understood. I'm not sure if I understood your question properly. When you say propose how the research would be carried, do you mean we should write how we would try and prove our statements? Well, yes, basically when I say propose the research, it's really about that. So you have a title, you have the statement, you are showing that there have been already projects in the area, okay, or research has been written about the area that you are proposing, and basically then you propose research for the local context here in Malta, for our schools, for our people, for our teachers, for our students, for our parents, for the community. So you can propose different research, okay? But of course you don't propose 10 research projects, you propose one research project, but you can choose to propose a research project in a specific area for a specific audience, okay? In other words, if we read about game-based learning, for example, do we propose how we would carry out our findings? Yes, you propose how you would carry out, for example, I don't know exactly. If I said game-based learning, you might say, okay, first of all, I would propose that such a research happens. That is, that a group of people get together and for example, a colleague of mine did a research project. Basically, she got together 10 students, 10 girl students. Her research took place in Denmark, and it was held with minority groups. So she took 10 female Muslim girls, and they spent a weekend together. It was 10 girls, 5 experts in game design, different experts in game design. There was a game developer, there was an audio expert, you know, for the music for the game, there was a programmer, there was, if I'm not mistaken, somebody from the psychology department, because of course one has to target different audiences. And anyway, they spent a weekend together in a school, and basically she was doing observation studies. So she was there as an observer, she didn't participate, and these 10 female students were divided into 2 groups, and they had to create a game with the help of the experts, of course, but they had a weekend to create a game. Each group had to create a game. So her research methodology, and this is what sort of research you would propose. You would propose, for example, that at the local level, a group of people would get together to experiment with game creation. Are our students, this is a rhetorical question because I know they are our students able to create games themselves given the right conditions, and that is a statement in itself. It is also about game-based learning, because you're really learning through games by creating games. So it's an interesting research concept. Did I answer your questions, Antea? As long as PowerPoint quizzes contain an element of competition, are they considered valid as games? I think, look, in my experience, okay, this is my personal experience, I have my own ideas, and many people don't agree with me. From my experience, I haven't really come across interesting PowerPoint quizzes, but then again, I can tell you, I am not an expert on PowerPoint, so I wouldn't be the best one to discuss this. I mean, I like PowerPoint, I use it, I use a lot of animations on PowerPoint, mux animations where you have flashing stars and stuff like that, interesting animations, and so I do use it, I spend time on it, but I wouldn't consider myself an expert in creating games via PowerPoint. However, I do know that there are people who do. And apparently there are some good games developed via PowerPoint. So if you find examples of such games, and these have been also recorded, I mean recorded examples as in published research work, then please go ahead and mention them, of course. Yes. So again, this idea of corroborating what you are trying to say, what you believe in, for example. Have I answered everybody's questions, or have I jumped or have I jumped too much and have missed? If I have missed out on anyone's question, can you please send a text, a chat line? The statement should be formulated by us, or can we use? Victoria, you can make use of a statement that has been used by someone already, but then in a way give it your own twist. Okay, so of course remember that if you take ideas from somebody else, statements, whatever you take, you have to cite that person. And you can, for example, yes, say that person said that statement, but then you have to explain whether you are in favor or not. So you still have to state your bias. Okay, so for example, James Paul Gee states that creativity in learning is only fostered through games, and that is James Paul Gee. I cite him, so on and so forth. Fine. My bias, my personal bias, is that I agree with this statement, and this research, I'm putting everything okay in short, but it's up to you to, and this research goes on to prove that this statement is true, okay, for example. Okay, so these are simple examples like that, which I'm making up right now. If we choose the one on game-based learning, the games have to be necessarily... The question is, if we choose the one on game-based learning, the games have to be necessarily technological ones, as in found on the internet, and this is very interesting, I think, because no, Victoria, no, Victoria, no need, to be honest, and I tell you why. I don't know if you have ever heard of a school. It is a public school funded by the public Texas. It's in New York. There is a sister school in Chicago. The school is called Quest to Learn. If you have time and you're into game-based learning, I would suggest that you Google it, Quest to Learn. And it's a fantastic school. I had the pleasure of meeting one of the teachers in this school during a conference that I went through. And it's fantastic. The whole concept is built around designing a curriculum around games. The curriculum is a serious curriculum. It's a curriculum that leads students towards college. So we're talking about a curriculum that is wide, that covers a broad broad areas, broad fields of study. But the children, the kids attending this public school, they go from primary all the way to secondary, play. And it's not necessarily, and this is the interesting thing where I get to your question, Victoria, it's not necessarily digital games. Sometimes the way they play is also in physical games. Well, in 2000 and was it 11 or 10? I think in 2011 I attended a fantastic conference. The conference was called DIGRA. I never felt so weird and so good at the same time. It was like having a collection of adults, some who had a certain, distinguished age, I would say. And these people were all playing. The conference was about game-based learning. In fact, it was DIGRA. It was actually for game designers, but there was a lot of education in it as well. And the nice thing about it was that we were playing all the time. And it's so weird because you'd be walking in this huge area and all of a sudden you see adult people playing ninjas. And ninjas are like, it's very funny, I cannot describe it. It's like having an adult, no computer game, okay? Having an adult in a serious, stuck in a position, in a static position, and then making a ninja movement, and then, almost not killing as in touching the other person, but if the other person moves, then that other person is out of the game. So it was kind of a weird game. When I went to the dinner, the conference, not actually dinner, the conference reception, because it wasn't a dinner, it was anything but a dinner. It was held in a club which had about 3 floors, and when I went in, somebody took away my bag, and I was, flabbergasted. I already saw these static ninjas outside the door. Someone took my bag. He gave me an iPhone in my hand. He said, look, you see, you've got a spoon and an egg. The iPhone showed a picture of a spoon and an egg. Up 3 floors of steps, don't make the egg fall, it's a game. And I was wearing heels, and I didn't know. And this guy, I didn't know him. And it was really, really, really fun. So this is, it's a different kind of play. And what I'm trying to say is, yes, there are aspects of game-based learning that might not always be digital game-based learning, but they include the element of learning through fun, learning through play, learning through doing, learning through being creative. And these are all ideas for research projects that might be interesting. Can we use our area? Please do. Petra asked if we can use our area of study as an example. Yes, please do. It is very important to put in the roots to practice. It would be so interesting if eventually any one of these assignments gets chosen to be carried out as a proper research work, and imagine having your ideas actuated in practice, being done in practice. So the more details you give, the better chance there is that your ideas get to be done in practice. Anything else, please? Any other questions that I can answer? No. Okay. Would anybody else like to ask a question? No. Okay, before we leave, I would like to stress and emphasize that please feel free, all of you, to feel free to email me. Feel free to come to my office to discuss if you wish to discuss in person and face-to-face certain elements, especially when you are writing your seminar paper. I would like to meet you again in January. For those of you who would like to, again, it's optional. We would meet, sit down, and maybe you would have time to discuss your ideas. Okay, so if we meet in January, say, look, I'm thinking about this. Is this a good way that I'm proceeding? Is this the best way to do it? Is this the best way to tackle it? I'm unsure. I'm uncertain. What sort of literature would you suggest? For example, I didn't find so much literature, and I will help you in every way I can. So that's what I would like to propose. So for now, I would like you to start to use these Christmas period to start thinking about these ideas, about your ideas, to start sketching some ideas about how you would like it to be done. Yes, Elaine. Elaine asked, is it an individual assignment? Yes, it is an individual assignment, and the reason is that I would like all of you to be able to put forward your ideas, because all of your ideas are valid, I am sure, and I would be interested to read about all of your ideas. So I will be reading all of your assignments. Would anybody else like to ask another question? Okay. So, Clarissa, I don't know whether I have understood correctly. How can we yes, Clarissa, you can formulate, so I will repeat this, you can formulate your own title as long as it falls under a general heading, a general category. So it's all very flexible, really. I didn't want to give out specific titles because I believe you are professionals, you have a mind of your own, and what I suggest may not be the right title for you. So what I did instead is give 5 broad categories, and then let you decide what sort of title you would like to choose for yourself, a title that, as I said, falls under a broad category. When do we need to hand in the seminar paper? The seminar paper should be handed in by the end of January. I think it is 31st of January. Where is your office? What I mentioned was this. Of course, you are free to come to my office. My office, I'll tell you, it's right next door to the Faculty of Architecture or the Faculty of Built Environment, whatever you know it as. The name is Biniet Giuseppe Cassar Pulicino. The room is 205. I'm on the 1st floor. So the entrance to the building is next door to the counselling office, and it's just up the stairs, 1st floor, room 205. Feel free to pop over and come to the office to discuss if you need anything. Regarding where to hand in the seminar paper, as I said, no need for hard copies. You can upload all your seminar papers on the Moodle. It is not available yet, the option to upload the assignment, but I don't think any of you have the assignment ready yet. So I'll make it available in the 1st week of January. Okay, so then you can upload your assignment whenever you feel like. Any other questions? No? No questions? Even if you have another question, if you would like to post any other questions on Facebook, I will answer. If you want to email me your questions, please go ahead. So feel free to contact me in any way that you feel would be best. Yes? So thank you all for coming this evening. The session has been recorded. I will stop the recording now. I shall be uploading it onto YouTube as usual, and then make it available here in this world. The exams end on 6th February. Do we hand the paper then? ideally, it's yes, it's end of semester. I had initially I suggested January 31st. Let us see how we're doing, and if many of you request an extension until the 6th of February, then we do a bit of an extension, but not more than the 6th of February anyway. But let's try for the 31st of January. That is when the assignment has been scheduled. If any of you would like to request an extension personally, then contact me and we'll try to reach an agreement. However, it is best for you to hand it in on the 31st of January. It's also for marking purposes. Yeah. Is that okay? Is that all? Thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for coming here. Thank you for your comments. And once again, bye to you all. Good night, and always feel free to contact me if you need anything. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye. Good night.